Hello, all. This is Nina with the 6th episode of the Audible Weed Walk. I have noticed that sometimes I call it virtual weed walk, sometimes I call it audible weed walk. So, well, there is nothing wrong with the virtual because it is virtual after all. All this lingo with my weed walk has started after the lockdown, when we couldn't go to the actual weed walk. So, just to clarify, we do have something which is called virtual weed walk. This is the short videos which with Marco Bosco helping with the film, and me and Krishna McKinsey, we go along and find one particular weed and we discuss about it. So we put up that videos usually once a week, and you can find that in the Facebook page Edible Weed Walk or the YouTube channel by the same name. And this one we call as Audible Weed Walk because we do it in the podcast. So what do we talk about? Do we talk about weed only? It seems not. It seems to be veer away in this to some related topic. This I want to explain. Imagine you have a plate of food in front of you. In the simplest form, it is just a plate with some food on it. However, if you look at it closely, you'll notice that the food, you'll notice the kind of food that has been served, whether it's seasonal or not. Has it been cooked or how it has been cooked? Has it been cooked traditionally or some other ways? It's a fusion or a twist. From then on, you can actually go even deeper and see, well, what kind of plate is it served on? And you can look at, even delve into the history of the food, of the items that has got into the food. And what I want to demonstrate here is the layers of learning one can have just by concentrating on one single thing. Here our focus is weeds. But from there we try to go deeper into the culture that we have created that makes us call those weeds. But we want to foster a culture in which we can honor and recognize them and know about them as an integral part of our daily connection to nature. Here comes a big role about identity. Giving a certain identity perhaps helps to communicate. So when we refer to something as weed, which is also an identity in a way, by calling it weeds, we are also communicating something. We are communicating that it's some plant that we have not planted. It has come up on its own. We have no idea what it is. And it's kind of growing wildly. And perhaps it is wild. So this is interesting, isn't it? So why don't we sometime communicate the name of a weed by a common name and some scientific name? Scientific name seems cumbersome, isn't it? By the time you manage to remember one, you are told, but oh no, that's actually the old one. They have changed it. Who are they? I mean, who knows? But then you're also told it may change again. Oh no. So I'll tell you some incidents about these kind of namings and names and identities, which can get confusing. But it's interesting in some odd ways. So, we all know chicken spinach, don't we? So some people love it, others don't care too much of it. Especially the ones who don't like slimy food don't like chicken spinach either. But, try out. Slimy foods are actually good for you. If you do not like slimy food, try out, experiment, mix, match, and do whatever you have to eat the veggie without getting rid of the slime. It has immense benefit to the stomach and the intestinal lining. Just like okra has, Malabar spinach has, and just like Commelina has. Commelina is a weed that is in my book. There are many more slimy foods around the world. Give it a chance. It happened to me a few years back. I was in Cameroon. I went there for an intensive field work in the rainforest, and as usual, I told the organizing team that I will be eating whatever the local people eat, and my colleagues, when we go to the field work, whatever they eat. Following this philosophy, sometimes, and actually most of the time, I'm served food that I have no idea what they are. But usually I survive and actually like it. But in Cameroon, I have noticed the food was different. They were mildly, deliciously spiced by unique spices sourced primarily from the wild. They were delicate and balanced. So one evening after days of work, we got this bowl of ugali or fufu, if you are familiar with it. It's the main dish of maize, which is in a porridge-like dough. And sometimes you also get served with plantain, with steamed plantain. Those are great too. So this time, the fufu came standing in a bowl of a deep green sauce, which even by the looked slimy with a capital S. So I was told that this was eru. Even though I did not mind some slime, but this looked like a goop. A few years before, I had seen such a gooey green mushroom growing on the bark of some tree in the middle of the forest in Tanzania, when my field assistant, lifesaver, guide, however you term the person, had informed me that these mushrooms are very rare and very tasty. So somehow, looking at that soup reminded me of that, very gooey consistency. I was hesitant, but my colleagues, who were all Cameroonian, seemed quite excited by it. So I did not want to be a spoilsport. I told myself, chin up, and took myself a spoon. And I swear it was one of the tastiest greens I ever had. Eru, which is called Netum africanum, it was served when cooked with Talinum triangulare. Now, did you catch that last word? Talinum triangulare. Do you know which one it is? Yes, some of you already recognize it. It's chicken spinach. So it's actually eru cooked with chicken spinach. So let's bring this story back to the identity and use more common and scientific names. And for now, we concentrate on chicken spinach. You will not find chicken spinach in my book because I had selected 40 species for the book, and I tried to select those which are less common and more wild. Chicken spinach, absolutely everybody knows about it in Oroville. And you utter the word and there is a twinkle of familiarity in pretty much everybody. And I think the credit of this goes to Krishna Mackenzie single-handedly, and he managed to make chicken spinach a household name. So I went to Nagaland, and it was a foodie trip. So I was in the yard of a very well-known chef in Nagaland. He had nice greens, and his free-range ducks and chickens are roaming around, nibbling on some things. And then I noticed they were nibbling at chicken spinach that has grown wild, but they are very tiny still. In my excitement, I called out, "Hey, look, chicken spinach!" And everybody stared at me. They stared with a silence comes from a politeness of not offending your guest. So actually, they were trying to say, "What the heck this you're saying, lady?" Because nobody in this group of 5 to 10 people ever heard the word chicken spinach. And that made me actually realize that it is more commonly known as water leaf. Everybody calls it water leaf, and some people also calls it Ceylon spinach here commonly. Actually, here, when I say here, it's outside Oroville. In Oroville, it's chicken spinach. But hold on. Since this plant is rich in calcium, iron, vitamin A, vitamin C, and many others, it has lovingly received many names across the world as it traversed the continent from its originating place in South and Central Americas. So then it has traveled to Africas, Asias, and everywhere it has got lovely and loving names. So now the drum roll comes, and here are some of the names of the chicken spinach around the world. It's called Kariru, Gubure, Suriname purslane, Philippine spinach, Florida spinach, Potherb flame flower, Lagos bologi, and sweetheart. So, confusing, right? If you really stuck to that common name, you would not know that you are talking about the same plant and be eating chicken spinach sitting across the table. So that's where the scientific names comes. You see, they were all these names belongs to one single plant whose name is Talinum fruticosum. Have you noticed a little earlier I termed the plant as Talinum triangulare? Brace yourself, there's a list of scientific name also that this plant has, which is Portulaca fruticosa, Portulaca triangularis, Talinum cassifolium, Talinum triangulare, and of course, most recently, Talinum fruticosum. But then, when we honor and respect, isn't common name enough? Do we have to go with this, terrible scientific names? What happened is, I'll tell you some other incident. It's about a few weeks back. I saw a post in Facebook. A gorgeous picture of chicken spinach with a beautiful narrative. But in that it was written, it is Talinum paniculatum. Oh no, it's none of these listed names that I had just read out. So you must be thinking, what's the big deal? You see, that's where the uninitiated may get confused. While in one side, the scientists have searched and researched about the same plant and found various characteristics and keep tweaking and changing the name, species, genera of a single plant, etc. But then there are other cases where they actually find some other plant which is slightly different from your plant, no matter how much tweaking you do with the plant in hand. So the relation between Talinum fruticosum and paniculatum is exactly that. They belong to the same family, but they are not the same plant. So I had not seen Talinum paniculatum in Auroville, or even in Pondicherry for the matter. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's just that what we see commonly is fruticosum. So what's the difference? They both look pretty. They look pretty much the same. From the picture, you have no idea that one is not the other. But Talinum paniculatum is actually a different plant. Apparently, looking the same, but it has a slight difference. It's sepals. Do you know what the sepal is? Sepal is the part of the plant that holds the flower. So it is actually the little lobed, roll that comes as a tiny little cup where the flower sits. So the size of the sepals in paniculatum is way smaller than fruticosum. That's the difference. So you think, oh no, what's the big deal? But they are both equally edible. But we do not know why the difference is. Nature made them distinct. Nature has made them different. And we just honor and respect and recognize those differences. And often we do not know why those differences are and how each one has been made unique other than those, particular characteristics. By the way, did you know chicken spinach was called material power of healing by the mother, and its significance is vital fantasy. Beautiful, isn't it? So, what do we have? We probably are in pretty close to closing today, but I will end with a few cautionary note about identity and about chicken spinach. Make sure that when you are picking up a plant to eat, if you do not know, make sure that you have somebody who is already initiated, somebody who knows how to eat them, are there to guide you, or you are very confident and have looked at the source that can guide you to do so. So in case of chicken spinach, I know that many of you like green smoothies with it, but chicken spinach has it's very nutritious, but it is also very high on oxalic acid. In case of chicken spinach, 90% of them are soluble form, which means if you eat them, they can actually easily become stones in kidneys or deposit like that. So people with gout, renal condition, kidney condition, babies need to be very cautious while eating chicken spinach. But there seems to be a remedy. Calcium oxalate and hydrocyanic acid, which is present in this particular plant, reduces significantly, and in case of oxalic acid, completely gets removed by cooking. So no other than very young shoots you can eat in salad or smoothie from time to time in moderation, but in other times, please cook your food and eat. With that, I will end today, and I'll see you in the next Audible Weed Walk.